Yeah,
Yes.
that's good. There we
Awesome.
go.
Yeah, don't want to forget that. So we'll be sending out a recording of this webinar, and we also have recordings of our past webinars, like about kind of our what we are have been doing for a few last few years on developing historic walking tours throughout communities across Canada. So yeah, so we'll start with who we are, and just I'm Andrew, co-founder and CEO of On the Spot, and I'm joined with by Ross here as well, who's our chief business development.
And Chatterbox in the house. Yes.
Yes, yes, and
Resident Chatterbox,
our,
extrovert Chatterbox. Yeah.
our resident talker. Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, we'll just be going over a bit of what we do is like how we've kind of come around to developing virtual tours, and then we'll be talking about why virtual tours are a good idea for museums, and what kind of approaches have been taken by some of the world's leading museums. After that, I think what kind of our goal here today is to get you excited about virtual tours and thinking about what kind of techniques, storytelling techniques you can use yourself. And this is really something that is, there's an enormous amount of potential here, and one that we really want you to come away from this webinar with, with really kind of inspired, I guess, thinking about, really what techniques you want to do in your museum. So in order to do that, I think it's helpful to learn about the different components of virtual tour. The basic terminology, the vocabulary, and the different types of ways you can walk through different hotspots, that kind of thing. After that, obviously we all come across, I'm sure we all come across, terms like MR, mixed reality, AR, augmented reality, VR, virtual reality all the time, and it might be a bit confusing. I know. I just asked my mom the other day, like, oh, like what, do you know what those are? And she's like, actually, it's a bit blurry what all those terms mean. And what we want to do here is kind of like clear that up a bit, and then also so it gives you an idea of what the capabilities are, and how you can implement them in your own museum. Um, and then finally at the end, we'll just kind of briefly, if you really want to get started on this right away, we'll just give you kind of just a couple points on how you can get started out the door and start building your own virtual tour very easily, and cheaply, much cheaper I think than you might expect. And we can help you with that, or you can just go ahead and do it yourself. But this will be the subject. We'll be diving a lot more deeply into this in our second webinar, which will be in January. We kind of typically do a webinar every 2 weeks, but because of the holidays, we figured we'll give us a little bit of a break and give everyone a little bit of a break. So that's what we'll be doing today. All right.
all right. Well, some bad news. We had like that the request that we put in for the upgrade on our limit didn't work. So it looks like we've like more than 100 people have tried to join, and so some people are kind of locked out because that we went for the upgrade. It's just so everyone knows, we went for the upgrade yesterday to exceed that limit, but unfortunately it looks like some people may miss out. So if someone is missing out, let them know that we'll send them a copy of the recording. We're sorry for that, but yeah, that's crazy that we got so many people join up. This is exciting. So,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's good and a little unfortunate, but
yeah,
but yeah, no, this
we're
is
recording it, so yeah. So sorry those
exactly.
who weren't able to log
Yeah,
in.
yeah. First come, first serve.
Yeah, for the next one, we'll have it applied. So, okay, so let's go on, keep going here. I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, great. So yeah, on the spot, we are a Vancouver-based startup. I started it with Chris Reed, our CTO, in 2016. We focus on developing historic walking tours digitally, and basically app-based walking tours that are based on then and now photography. So what we do is we find thousands, hundreds in a community or dozens of historic photos, and then map them out to where the photographer was originally standing, and then reshoot them from the same angle, so that every stop on a walking tour in the app, people can kind of see what someone was seeing decades ago. So as you see here, on the right, we have, so basically, this is a little video that the part of a little video that the Sault Ste. Marie Museum developed, one of our partners, but showing, like how how you can kind of experience the different buildings and historic sites and stuff like that. The photo you see in the middle on the right is of course the Lionsgate Bridge, under construction in 1938, and today from the same angle. And then at the top right, you see what we call our crossfades. These are photos that are combined then and now, and this one's of Winnipeg on the day that the First World War broke out, combining those two. And so I guess the key things is that we develop these walking tours. We hire history writers to develop them, and we work with partners, museums, historical societies, tourism organizations across Canada to develop these, and we make sure that the app is free for users, so that it is high quality, free educational content. And so we want to keep the barrier to entry as low as possible. Yeah.
And as a result of that, and the reason for that is it's our vision and mission to essentially be the future of history and greatly influence how people will learn about the past and the future. That is a previous webinar that we did, which we can send to you, or might have been included in the registration link. But yeah, it's our mission to be how teachers will teach kids in school as they grow up, learn about their local community, and then up to their capital cities and their province, and then the whole country, and then the other world, and the rest of the world. And then as they learn about different cultures, kind of keep referring back to this On the Spot app. And then once they, graduate and move into life, they have this tool where they are able to kind of go around the world and learn about the history and the culture, and it's all accurate, and it's all put on by people in the communities themselves as we come out to each individual community when we partner with them, so that we're absolutely sure that on what we do. So the quality of content is very important to us, and this is why we're history buffs that have created an app, as opposed to tech people that are shoehorning history and clamoring in a bunch of content, right? So
yeah, that's what we really find, I think, is compared to many of the other apps out there, is they kind of, history is just one of their many different offerings of tourism and stuff. But we really put history front and center. I mean, I'm just deeply passionate history nerd, and that's. Yeah, that's where next slide. Oh yeah, okay, cool.
Mhm.
And so that's something that we kind of take ownership of the content. Like, we don't own the content, but we take pride in the content that we develop, the walking tours, the photography, and we want it to be an educational tool that will stand the test of time. So that whenever we develop content in a new partner city, we want to make sure that it is the highest quality right out the gate, and then as technology keeps advancing, we keep improving the app, and improving the housing for that content, and so that it stays cutting edge, and it stays relevant, because many apps, they kind of fail right they're developed and then they're kind of forgotten, and technology moves on, and so we want to avoid that as far as possible. And so digital history is obviously more important now than ever, I think.
Yeah, and our main core competencies right now, is the next slide says, the then and now photography, and then the other one too about our walking tours. So briefly, we mentioned that, but here's that slide. So Andrew, what were you signing on this one?
Yeah, sure. I'll just briefly, anywhere between 50 to 600 accurately mapped out historic photos in a community. Here's one of our photographers in Ucluelet, Alexa, and researchers. So photography is really key, and it's a really great way to get people, especially people who are not typically interested in history, hooked into it. The then and now photography is key. I mean, On the Spot started as a then and now photography blog. I started in back in 2013, and it's it was all these kind of photo essays of different cities that I visited while backpacking. Turned out to be very popular, and when it would frequently go viral. And so we found out that this kind of photography is a great way to kind of make people reimagine their surroundings and look at their surroundings in a new way. See how the city has changed, see what's been lost, what's been kept, what's been preserved, and so this is kind of like the bait that we use to get people interested in history, and then we chain selections of these photos together into historic walking tours that examine different aspects of local history. As you can see here, these are some of the different themes that we have in Vancouver. We have a tour on the history of real estate speculation in Vancouver because that's something that people are pretty interested in here, and it has a much longer, more fascinating history that I think many people might have thought. You can do communities like Chinatown, or just architecture, events like the Great Fire of Vancouver, and we can kind of walk people through those historic events. Basically, this is what we do typically. And this is just, we're explaining this all now because I know a lot of the people that we're having on this webinar might not be too familiar with us. So this is kind of our bread and butter. The virtual tours is something that is quite new. Here's just to show how we've kind of expanded over the years. You can see we started in Vancouver in 2016. Chris and I just built the app to see if anyone would use it. And then since then, we've kind of been growing much more rapidly. Like year on year. In 2020, this map's are already out of date. So we'll be launching 5 more communities in the Lacombe region, or we have, including like Blackfelds, Clive, Eckville, Alex. So
well, frankly, we got so busy with them that we weren't able to do Regina, right? And
so we got to update.
but yeah, there are worse problems that we can have, and we found some cool partners and some cool stories on that are now in the app, so you can see them as we've done a soft launch for those previous to our press release that we do when we do a partner city. But anyways, I'm rambling on here.
Yeah, of course. Well, and then we've got a new deal or a new project that we'll be working on in New Brunswick. So we'll be expanding into the Maritimes now as well. So we're trying to get in every province and territory as quickly as possible, but without compromising the quality of the content. So this is just to show you that where we are. This is a new thing that we're doing. So this is museum listings that we provide to museums. And so what we want to do is we have a user base of about 50,000 users who are not often they're traveling around the country, or they might be in might not be in one of our partner cities. And so what we want to do is make it so that there's something in the app for them everywhere. And so for starters, what we want to do is give them let them know where all the museums are. And so we're giving museums across Canada free profiles once they just fill out a form for us, and then we can promote those to our user base. Now, this is kind of the entry point for museums into the app, and they're kind of seated alongside our regular walking tour content, and we can do a variety of techniques to kind of get people visiting or visiting the museums. And one important key thing here is that our virtual tours, when we do virtual museum tours, they are integrated into the museum listing pages, as well as in the tour lists for different cities. So once we kind of get we have a basic museum profile, we can start to build on that. And adding more content and making it more engaging and getting more people interested and actually going to plan those museum visits. So I would recommend, if anyone here is interested in this, it's free, it's permanent. We're not going to turn around and charge any money for it, for keeping this up. Please, we have a link to the museum listing. I guess Ross, you could post that in the chat. And
yeah, I'm gonna bring that up now.
Yeah, and you can share it, or you can fill it out, and we'll get those in the app quickly, as quick as we can.
For the new year, for sure. Yeah.
Yes, of course. So we've had about 200 signups so far, which is pretty exciting.
All right, and without further ado.
Yes. So this brings us to what you're all here for today, is virtual tours. So we're going to start, fairly at the basics, which is, what are they and who is doing them. As you can see here, we just have a list of, you can pick pretty much any of the world's top museums, and they will have virtual tours of their museums. And this allows people from anywhere in the world to kind of go through and experience all the exhibits, walk through the galleries virtually without actually having to visit. It's something. It's a technology that's been around for a while, perhaps a bit over a decade, really, when this is. The first kind of virtual museum tours started to appear, and so it's a tried and true technology. I'm sure many of you probably will have seen these before or taken a look at a virtual museum tour before, but it's a popular technology and never more so than right now for obvious COVID related reasons. And but yeah, it's just to show that everyone's doing it, and or all the big guys are doing it. Google Arts and Culture, they haven't they're kind of out in front on as they are on many tech things, but they have an app called Google Arts and Culture, which provides online exhibits and virtual tours for about 2,000 museums around the world. I think they even if you'd like your virtual tour to be featured by them, I think you're able to reach out to them and ask, but I think they take it kind of like steps at a time, or they kind of expand set lists at a time. But just want to emphasize, this does not mean that small museums cannot have virtual tours that are world class quality. And I think what we're finding is that many of the techniques we'll be talking about through here today are very they're featured in different ones of these museums, but very very few, if any of them, of these virtual tours feature like multiple multiple of these techniques well. And I find that kind of interesting. I think perhaps maybe a lot of these were developed a few years ago, and probably a great cost. But now we found that it's very cheap and straightforward to develop virtual tours that are on par, if not better, than the virtual tours that these guys have. And that's something we're pretty excited about, actually. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do
wanna...
Yeah, I gotta add the second poll question here.
Oh yeah, of course. So yeah.
So what's holding you back from creating content?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is a curious. What challenges that museums are facing in getting some of this content created? For some, it can be simply finance, funding, not knowing where to start. Some of you already have, so we're very keen to see, where you guys may be at, and do a poll question. So yeah, please feel free to do that as we continue on. But yeah, Andrew, show us this one while they're answering the question. We can share the results in a couple more slides.
Okay. Yeah. So if all the big guys are doing it, why are they doing it? Well, there's a couple of key factors for that are specific to a lot of smaller museums as well, not just the big ones. But and that is that many are just open seasonally, or they have limited hours. And this is especially true across much of Canada with a lot of these community museums. They're closed for the winter; they're only open for the summer. But for these museums, if you want to, engage with the public and throughout the year have the capability for people to visit your museum digitally and have like a comprehensive experience, a digital experience, then that's something that you can do with virtual tours. Young people especially of course are really into digital technologies. It kind of goes without saying. We all it's a bit cliche at this point, but they're very familiar with them, and they all know how to use these virtual tour technologies. And so it's something that we're able to, that you're able to engage directly much more easily with these younger people, because they're not often what they'll do that whenever they're hear about something or want to hear about a museum and are planning a visit, they'll go and look on the website and they'll probably check out the virtual tour, and that'll get them interested in actually going. If there's something that they want to see up close and there's more detail they want to get, another if there's any you can use that. The virtual tour is kind of like a lure to get them in. It gets people excited. Also, it's allows people to engage with it globally. So that you're able to get anyone on Earth, from anywhere, can go and virtually visit your museum. And if you have a specific collection or exhibit that you want to show off that might have broad appeal beyond your community, well, this is a great way to get people engaged with it. And of course, there's because of in this era of social distancing, it's hard to say exactly when the vaccines will come, when the lockdowns will end. Hopefully soon, but in the meantime, uh, uh, virtual tours are a fantastic way to engage with the community and just keep your doors open and people can still visit in a manner of speaking, and it gets the people excited to come back once once it's safe to do so. So there's a number of compelling reasons for museums to kind of really look into this technology and see what's there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely not like when you go and you do these virtual tours. I'm not sure how much of any of you have done, but when you do them, it definitely doesn't fill the same spot. It give you the same feeling, and I feel that every one that I see that I do that makes me want to go and see it more. And this is kind of an emerging technology that's interactive that is a great lead to bring people in there to see things in person. So
Mhm.
I agree big time.
Yeah, I think they're definitely the virtual tours are complementary to the actual museum experience. They're not a replacement for it. I think
Definitely
that kind of goes without saying. And here's just a
Yeah,
little.
and it's and putting it out there for people to see is fun and key and critical, right? So
Mhm.
sorry, we're just rambling now. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, on to the next. So we're doing pretty good for time. Okay, so what is a virtual tour? So let's just start very fundamentally at the basics. It is a virtual tour is something you've probably taken before. If you've used Google Street View, you see here this is just downtown Vancouver and Google Street View, where it's an image. Virtual tours imply a 360 panorama images, which can be taken either with a phone, the camera, or with a 360 camera. We can get a bit more into that later, but it allows you to kind of uh, I guess it's sort of like I don't know. I thought this was a good analogy, but might be a bit clunky. But it's like if you were the way the photographs work is that it's a 360 panorama. It's like if you were to like a Mercator projection where you open up a globe, spread it, take a round shape and spread it out on a piece of paper, and then you can wrap it back up into a globe. It's the same with this, except that you're looking at it from the inside. And so what it does is it's an image. These panorama images are all spread all around you, and you're able to look around, look up, look down, and it gives you the sensation of actually being there, being able to pick and choose what you want to look like, what your attention is drawn to. By chaining these panoramas together, you turn it into a tour, and so that's more or less the very basic of what it is. There is, and then on top of that, you can add all kinds of multimedia, which are called hotspots, which we'll get into, but you can add all kinds of multimedia and enhance the experience in a variety of ways. Really, really, we were kind of just scratching the surface in this
Oh
presentation.
man, I almost want to hint at it, but we have a whole slide for some of those features later. Like they're really cool. Like
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there's three major components of virtual tours. There's the skin, there's the hotspots, and the tour nodes, which are actually a class of hotspot, but they're a major aspect of it. So they're kind of almost deserving of their own separate component. But skins is the overlay that you get, like kind of like a heads up display that you get while walking through the virtual tour, and it provides you various navigational tools and branding, audio visual controls and settings, and just like links out. So there's a huge variety of different kind of skins you can develop, but we're developing several that we can kind of customize for each of our partners. And you can see up at the top right here, this is the American Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. They have a really cool floor plan that you're able to, sticks with you, and as you go from panorama to panorama, and you're able to kind of click specific panoramas and zoom straight to those. At the bottom, you see of this image, you see the controls for the camera. And this is, just go up, down, left, right. You can enter VR mode, go full screen, next, and back. It's just basically the controlling of the camera. And then at the top left, you have just branding there, which is, the Smithsonian. But this is just kind of, once again, there's many different ways you can go with the skin. But just to know that, these are some of the elements that you can use. Then you have hotspots. Now, hotspots are specific to a particular panorama. And what they do is it's basically entryways into all sorts of different types of content. So you see here, this is another still from the AMNH. You have a couple of camera icons there that take you to video or sorry image galleries that you can click through, and then you also have those directional arrows, which are tour nodes, which are a kind of hotspot, but they're very important because there's actually several different kinds of ways you can approach tour nodes. Um, uh, the main one being how many do you want and how far long do you want to guide people on the tour. But yeah, once again, with hotspots, once in each specific panorama, you can add pretty much any kind of multimedia you can think of: text, images, photo albums, videos, and audio as well. Somehow didn't make it in there. So for tour nodes, what are the two main kind of approaches you can take with these? And so I want you to think about how this might work for your museum. So this is from one of our partner cities. They've already developed a virtual tour for the Princeton Museum. Now this is Princeton, British Columbia. It's a small town of about 3,000, but they have a fantastic virtual tour. But you can see here, you have many different options for where you can walk. You're not really being directed in any particular direction. You see, if you see something across the room, you can click a hotspot. If that's interesting to you, you can click all the way over there and go and visit that spot anywhere in the museum. And so it allows you to kind of take the experience as you like and kind of go around, and you can also pass through chairs like you're kind of like a ghost wandering around. And visit whatever part of the museum is interesting to you. And so this is one of the approaches, and it's probably one of the more popular ones with museums. And so yeah, that's the free walk tour. Then you also have guided walking tours. And so they take you through a set path and allows the narrative that the museum wishes to show you to kind of be carefully designed so that you kind of get the experience of what they want you to have walking through the museum. And so this is the Sistine Chapel. Now, it was designed and painted, to be an experience while walking through it, right? Where you entered. And so what you see here is you have the next and back buttons. So so it takes you from one stop to the next, and you can kind of zoom in and experience that. And then you can either click the arrow, the tour node, or you can just go next, and it'll take you to the next set destination. And so this is a different way of doing it, where you can choose to have a carefully choreographed tour. And this is something that we'll be doing for our outdoor tours that we'll be getting into a bit, because we want to, our typical walking tours that we do in communities, they're outdoor, right? But for, the then and now photography, and those, go from one spot to the next and the next. You can also do free walking with the app as well, where you're able to, like we have 600 spots. You can pick the one that's nearest to you and go view it. But with the guided walking tours, we kind of guide people along the path, and we can also do that. We'll be doing that with the virtual tours that we're designing right now for outdoors. So you have these two options here, and these two different approaches, and you can think about which one would work best for you. All right, and then we have obviously the different types of hotspots. Now, it kind of goes without saying that if you you have a hotspot, you can click it, it brings up an image, it brings up a video or something. But you can go quite a bit deeper than that, and there's different ways you can enhance the experience with hotspots. This is another one from the American Museum of Natural History. They have high quality photos. Oh, and I just want to point out there, just at the top, I'm highlighting. Okay. Yeah. Just up there is you can see that it says this is a past exhibit that is no longer active, and I think that's an exciting feature, because you can basically preserve exhibits that are no longer there. So if you spend all this time and energy developing an exhibit in your museum, and then it's only up for 6 months, and then you gotta pack it away back into storage. Well, you can develop a collection of virtual tours of those, so that people can kind of continue to experience those virtual tours. Or those exhibits after they've been stored away
in great detail too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the key.
Yeah, and I just want to just pointing out here. So what you have is if you click the image, it brings you to an image gallery, and now these can be super high resolution photos, and you can take them from any angle. And this allows people to really take a look at all the details that are available that you want to be able to show off. And so that's kind of a neat thing. You can also include, the image galleries. They can be historic photos, they can be related photos, they can be different art that's say related to in a gallery. Say different works from a particular artist that might not be in the museum but are in the public domain, and you want to or in the art gallery, and you want to showcase those. So you can draw stuff in from images and gallery and galleries from outside of the exhibit itself as well, to enhance the experience of the exhibit.
And we can segue this right into the audio, which you can also put on there and have the tour guide speaking in multiple languages.
Yeah. So I know many of you will have been to a museum, right, where they have the audio guides, and you put the headphones on, you walk up to an exhibit that has a number, you punch in the number, and it'll play a piece of audio for you that's explaining it. Well, I mean, there's no reason that with fairly little effort you can just drop those onto a virtual museum tour. So this is the Benaki Museum in Athens, and you can see here that it's available in 6 languages. And so you select English.
This exhibit is the upper part of a clay relief plaque made in a Cretan workshop in the second half.
Oh, it's really quiet, but yeah, it's playing.
It depicts a god.
Yeah. I just so you can see.
Yeah.
Just yeah. We don't have to sit and listen to the. It's fascinating as Cretan history is in the Bronze Age. Yeah. So with audio, that's like the most basic way, right? Including an audio tour. But what you can also do is bring in intangible history, such as recordings with indigenous elders, pioneers, music and song. You can have it playing in the background as you're going through an exhibit. You don't just have to, it's not just hotspots, it can also be background music. And we think this is very exciting for telling indigenous history, because this is, we allow them to speak in their own words. We can also, have it in original indigenous languages as well. And then, and translate that as, there's enormous potential here, I think, especially for indigenous history. That's something that we're really hoping to include on one of our upcoming outdoor tours as well. So that we can, using audio, we can let them, let indigenous elders and stuff tell their own stories in their own words.
Yeah, that's exciting. So much in store for 2021. So many interesting conversations with so many interesting people that I've been speaking with here. It's been fun and exciting. And yeah, that's one of the things that we're looking at developing as there's more and more interest in. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's video. Now, you think, oh, how can we approach video? Well, videos can be made of tours guides going through the museum and kind of walking you through. And so this is a Facebook Live event that the American Museum of Natural History did. And, obviously it's...
Yeah, I can't hear this one.
Oh, you can't?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, okay, that might be. I guess we discussed that, and I can hear it. So, anyway, but what he's doing is introducing himself, and then he's going to take you through the tour and take you through the museum and kind of give you a video guide of it as you go along. Now you can add these videos in a virtual tour at each spot, so that you can have the experience of one of your experienced tour guides or yourself, your curator, to walk people through the exhibits as well, so they can play the video and then go back and kind of examine the panorama images as well in greater detail. So you can also include historical videos, and like stock footage, like that's related and that kind of thing. So those are the basic capabilities of virtual tours, and that's something that you can start to think about. Okay, like what kind of stuff, what kind of content can we put in our virtual tour? What kind of hotspots? How do we have audio that we want to share? Do we have video? Do we have different images, that are high resolution that can be different image galleries or just tying in historic photos. There's a lot of there's a lot there that to chew on, but there's more. There's more. We'll get to it. But before we get into the kind of more advanced stuff, let's just talk about AR, VR, and MR. So MR is probably one you guys hear about less often, but it is mixed reality, and it is actually the umbrella term that covers both AR and MR and VR. And you can see here, just at the bottom, you have the spectrum. Between on the left side is the physical world, where where augmented reality begins, which is an overlay of digital information on the reality that you are physically experiencing. And then as it's it is a spectrum because there's many different technologies and they fall into many different kind of categories, and they overlap in some places. The line is a bit blurry in some places, and so kind of you want to just be clear on that. These are, you often hear kind of marketing people and stuff be like, oh, we have VR tech now, or we're using like advanced AR. Well, you just want to be clear that these can mean a lot of things, and these can be applied in a lot of different ways. But there's some overlap. There's some Anyway, did you have anything to add, Russ?
No, I'm just agreeing with you that there's definitely a lot of buzzwords that are being thrown around, and there's a big difference between, it's like saying television. There's everything from black and white up to 4K 60 res, right? So there's a huge difference between them, and some of these technologies work better than others. Some of them are more stable than others, and this is one that we're talking about. And part two, that is available and it's stable. It's ready to use. It's old. It's not old, but it's a well-established technology with Matterport. But yeah, and where are they on the spectrum of between AR, VR, and mixed, right? So this is what we're going to get into right now, though. But this is just a touch on it.
Yeah, but I think. Did you have results for the poll as well, Ross?
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt, but yeah, no. Okay.
Let's hear it.
View results. Show attendees. There we go.
So what's holding people back?
Okay, so 19% already have content. Resistance to change, disinterested. I assume a lot of that comes even from the board and from others people that it's difficult to bring in interest. So fair enough. Current community partner, all right, and then would like more. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oh wow, these are kind of mixed up. Yeah. So yeah.
We'll have to analyze those more later for figuring out how we can help people. Best assist.
Well, this is where the part two comes from. It's potential to do it for free themselves with what we're going to talk about in the second part in January on the 13th. So it's easy to talk to any board or anyone into doing it yourself for free on your phone, right? And with the instructions that we'll give, you'll be able to do that. At least have a basic tour. So it'll be fun. I'm curious to see what all the tours that people will create from that. But anyway, that's that. Move on.
All right. So, where does AR, VR, and the wider MR really? Where do our tours fall in that? And that's the exciting thing is that our tours, basically the virtual tour content that we develop, that we've already begun to develop with 7 different partners, is capable of being repurposed for both AR and VR capabilities. So what does that mean? So VR is a fully immersive digital experience. It's basically you are seeing and hearing and feel like you're actually totally engrossed in a digital reality. So what this means is that you're wearing a headset. The headset is kind of key to this to this whole experience. But it's like you wear the headset. You look up. And the virtual screen will move up, down, side to side. You can reach out, and if you touch things, and it will cause an interaction in the digital space. But you can basically VR is actually already available for most virtual tour software, and the software that softwares that we are using now as well. So basically, all you have to do is get a VR headset, and then you can go on one of our virtual tours, and this is the case with most virtual tours, and press a VR button, and they are VR ready. It creates that VR experience, and so really, it's VR is already there more or less. You can even like say Facebook even offers it. If you can post images that are if you post a 360 virtual image on Facebook, or 360 panorama image on Facebook, you can have it go and in VR mode, it'll download a Google or Apple kind of VR software, and then if you have the headset, you can view that on a Facebook video or image or video in virtual in full VR. So VR is like a lot less mystical, I think, than many people might think, and it's already out there all around us if you just have the tools to view it. And
Well,
this is something. Or yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that so many of the bugs have been worked out that it's now easily accessible to do it as simply as flipping a switch, because all of the research development has gone into it over the last 10 years. There's been huge talk about this, and there needs to be people adopting this technology, which is why they're making it free and accessible for us to basically take advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just really over the last like 3 to 5 years that this technology has really become widely available and easy to do. So it's don't be afraid of VR. If you get a virtual tour, you pretty much probably almost certainly already have it. You just need the right tools to experience it.
Be able to experience it, yeah.
Now, augmented reality is a bit more complicated and quite interesting. So augmented reality is where you overlay digital information on digital, imagery and information on a viewed reality, and so you're already also experiencing this probably frequently on your phone. There's simple AR. You have here on the right, you have Snapchat filters. So what it does is it detects, a face, or a surface like the ground, and it can create, on that spot, a digital overlay that appears like it is actually what you're looking at. That appears like that is augmenting that reality that you're viewing. Advanced AR. That precisely registers, where specific objects are in a physical space, is quite a bit more challenging, and that technology is still kind of being worked out. But they've just been making massive strides with it. So with advanced AR, is say we have this image here at the bottom left, right? And so what it does is it detects exactly where your phone is in physical space, and then has to overlay all these sewage pipes and storm drains, for instance, on top of that. And so if you were to say pick a particular building, it has to be able to identify that building and then be able to figure out exactly where the edges are, how it looks, and then can give you information on top of that building, historic site, all that kind of thing. Now, new iPhones, Chris has just informed me, have this advanced capability, and the technology is good and becoming more stable, and will be commonplace in several years. So what does this mean? So this means that if we have all the GPS coordinates of the precise GPS coordinates, and kind of the orientation of where's north of each of these panoramas, well, then we can put those into rework those as augmented reality, so that if someone is walking through your museum, they can the camera will be able to detect, or your phone will be able to detect, exactly where you are. And then if you're standing on where the panorama was taken, it will, or around there, it will show you overlay on those hot spots, video, audio, all this stuff on the reality that you're looking through in your phone, and then you'll be able to access those the exact same way. So this is all to say that augmented reality and VR are basically, we're able to rework our tours with both of these capabilities. VR is already done. AR will be coming, and it'll be more challenging, but we'll be working. Chris is very excited to get working on it with these new iPhone software and firmware. So that's AR and VR. I was wondering if anyone has any questions, or if there's any questions so far.
Oh, Justin's keeping up with the questions. If something comes up more complicated, he'll let us know.
Okay.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. Okay. So now that we've got that covered, let's think of. I just want to briefly show you a few of the more advanced techniques that we will be capable of doing, and if you want them, you can come to us and we will do it for you.
And to help you build this. Yeah,
Yeah, help you out with.
exciting. Yeah, when we found out about the capabilities of this is pretty neat how this happens to Andrew. Go on. I'm interrupting here.
It's all good. No, I think we're doing pretty good for time here. So, this is a YouTube video, but it was shot with a 360 camera. And what this means is that this YouTube video, I'm not sure if you guys are able to hear this, but it was filmed by an indigenous nonprofit group in Quebec as part of a project they were doing for the Virtual Museum of Canada. It was a Virtual Museum of Canada exhibit, and we're hoping to be developing one of those ourselves with a partner doing a virtual tour next year. But we'll wait and see. So, but what we can see here is that you're able to record not just a panorama that's just a still image, but a video, and you're able to have directional sound. So what you can do is, to take, say, if you were to have hotspots on your tour, on your museum tour that explain, with that are video hotspots of a tour guide. These are videos you open up. Well, you can take that to the next level and instead just have that video embedded be the panorama itself. And then that panorama, and then the tour guide can explain, it'll be, and have directional sound. They can explain, what you're looking at and stuff. And you can still, on top of that video, access different hotspots and be looking around, and you can, mute it, play it, rewind it, all that kind of stuff. So this is a very exciting capability. And this is something that we're hoping that, we kind of have the use to doing, the use for. Another thing is you can also have ambient sounds, like say if you're in a downtown, or if you're out in nature, you can hear the birds, all that kind of stuff. And this video, it was taken at it's at an archaeological dig site in Quebec, and that's something that we're hoping we can kind of I'm really hoping we get the opportunity to do some virtual tours of archaeological dig sites that include videos like this, because that's quite exciting capability.
And what I like about this is it's quite literally taking video outside of the box format that video typically is.
Yeah.
Right. There is no box in this format because it videos everything 360 up and above and around, and you can look around that just as though you're on the location and the video is still changing. So it's extremely interesting to be able to kind of experience that, and there's a lot of potential you can do with that, because that's kind of the virtual equivalent of standing there in front of a tour guide telling you what you're looking at and being able to look around at the site independently while listening to what they're saying, as opposed to being stuck focusing on what this camera was pointed at, whereas the camera is literally pointed at everything. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what we do with this technology and the cool stories that'll come from it, and even be able to see possibly some of you guys on the screens telling the stories and doing this. This is cool. So yeah, it's an interesting concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. And then we have here's another kind of advanced technique that I think is really cool. Many of you might have seen these before, gigapixel images. These are 1 billion pixel images, or the equivalent of 1,000 megapixels. And these can be taken with high quality cameras, DSLRs that stitch together various photos. But as you can see here, they stitch together them into a panorama, and then you're able to zoom in to an insane degree. And this is potentially something you could use as the starting point for a walking tour, or just a kind of a tour that's walking through your community. If you want to explain, different, like say different neighborhoods and stuff like that. And then we'll also be getting a drone that with a high quality, 4K camera, where we can use those drone photographs of, a skyline and just right above a city to as an entryway, to different parts of, different hotspots that, say talk about different neighborhoods, different buildings, or even just walk through different events, right? We can do a guided tour from a gigapixel, from a bird's eye view of, say, like a battle that occurred in, the Battle of Austerlitz or the Plains of Abraham or something. So that's something that's, pretty cool and exciting, I think. So that's something, if you guys might be interested in. And then there's one more. There's a couple more of these there's guided tours through individual photos, and you can do this also for panoramas. So what you can do is guide someone through a single panorama. So this is one that's from the Tokyo Museum, a National Museum of Japan, I believe. That is so it shows you a piece of art. You can zoom in on different pieces of the art, and it tells you, you see at the bottom right, what you're looking at. It walks you through different parts of the painting. So you can do this with, say, pieces of art to really help people understand the art, explain what they're looking at, and then zoom through and walk through different aspects of it. You can also do that with say very detailed historic photographs, or just even panoramas that are on your virtual tours. So that if you have, you want to walk someone through a narrative of the panorama, you can do that, and that's something that I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to try out. Now this is more complex, but it's also, there's many different interesting kind of techniques. But if you can think of other ways that you'd like to tell your digital story from your museum, you can get more abstract and kind of have ways of visualizing data. Now, this is one by the British Museum. It's a calendar showing different events throughout history, and so it helps you try and tie together all the different aspects of history. Through different tools, tying them together. I know, the British Museum did a very famous podcast, like The History of the World in 100 Objects. And this is kind of, by tying all these artifacts and objects together, you can see it by region, by time period, that kind of thing. It's an interesting way of approaching it. And so you don't have to, when you are doing virtual tours, you can use these kinds of more abstract data visualizations to really think outside the box. And if that's something that you'd be interested in, something that, well, we'd be happy to help with. I know I know Chris would be.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So this brings us then to thinking outside the box. So I want to say that, this is one thing we've kind of been mentioning all through this webinar, is that you don't have to just have your virtual tour inside a museum. Right now, we are designing two that are outdoors. One for the Downtown Vancouver Business Association that talks about sustainability and urbanism and urban design. And so we have a virtual tour that will be going through downtown Vancouver, discussing different aspects of architecture, how government is, making the place, a better place to live, different and just specific aspects of, say the way plazas are designed and stuff like that, people might not notice, but that have had a lot of thought go into them. Another one that we're really excited about is a tour along the river that runs through Fort Macleod. And we're developing this now, where it is, tells the story of geology, ecology, and Indigenous history there, and as well as the first fort that was flooded so frequently that the Northwest Mounted Police Fort that was flooded so frequently they had to move it. So don't have to think of just inside the museum. You can think of parks and trails, historic sites, archaeological digs. I don't know. We're open to really expanding this into any kind of storytelling we can really think of. And it's something that we're really excited about. So I don't know, I want you to think of, is there anywhere in your community that might be interesting to have an outdoor tour? And yeah, I guess, Ross, you have that.
You said that just as I posted that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'd love to hear. And as also, if there's a lot of interest in one particular thing, well, we'll kind of put a lot more firepower into developing that particular aspect. But like outdoor tours that focus on nature, geology, the environment.
So
is
far, it
something
looks
that
like there's a lot of interest in everything. A little bit less nature, but yeah, no, it's coming in quite a bit.
Cool.
And yeah, I mean, we're keen to do all of it. I mean, over the years, we're going to end up doing all of these. So this is exciting.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, like history is not is our bread and butter, and it always will be. But things like history is also related to everything else, obviously, right? So urban design, so the Vancouver, even though we're doing a lot of contemporary urban design, we're also doing the history of urbanization in Vancouver, and to show decisions made at the planning level 50, 100 years ago, how they have shaped the city today, in order to illustrate how decisions made today will shape the city 50 to 100 years from now. And so things like that. So it's really, we're not kind of going too far off our intent, our kind of set path, but it's something that is exciting exciting new things that we can expand into, where we don't need a historic photo tied to every site, basically.
All right, I'll show results. So yeah, 67 for museums, 38 votes for museums, 30 for communities, 24 for nature. So a lot of everything, basically.
Cool.
Yeah. And archaeological digs. Now there's some good votes there. We definitely are interested in that. That would be a great place to showcase that 361 the video from virtual museums of that site in Quebec, right? And yes, we will have links for those, which we'll send out in the follow-up emails.
Awesome. Okay, wonderful. So, so I hope that's a good. We've inspired you to think about getting into a virtual tour and how it can work in your community and what we want to do. And so what we'll be doing in the next webinar is kind of a detailed step-by-step walkthrough of how you can do it yourself, and for free, more or less, or working with us. But if you can't wait that long, just a little, you can get started now, and what you need is what you need to take the photography. Now there are specialist 360 cameras which also take that 360 video. That's what we use currently. But what you can also do is just have a DSLR, put it on a tripod, and then take photos in a circle and up and down into a panorama, and then you can stitch those together. And there's a lot of softwares that are easily capable of doing that, including the ones we're already using. I mean, Pano 2 VR is the one we're using. Currently, we'll also be using Matterport as well, but those two have the capability to stitch photos together. The exciting thing about Matterport too is that you can do it from your phone. So you can just stand there and take a photo panorama, and it'll stitch it together for you. And so you can do it from your phone. There's a number of softwares that will allow you to create stitch panoramas and then create with your phone, and then put those into a virtual tour format. There's a couple of free ones we listed here if you just want to play around with it. The Vitility, Lapentor, a couple that are apparently well liked. But Matterport is kind of like the gold standard one. It's one we'll be using two types going forward. Matterport is very popular, with real estate and stuff, but it's quite simple to use. It's quite easy, but it doesn't have quite the capabilities of Pano 2 VR, but it does have some cool effects like the dollhouse effect, which we kind of went through in the that you can see where it creates a 3D map and then a floor plan automatically of a museum, and that's something that will be showcasing at the next webinar. So basically, you can get started now if you want. And if you're also in a rush and want to get moving right away, you can reach out to us. And so, yeah. So.
And yeah, we can do it for starting as low as $500.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. And these are high quality ones.
Yeah, and we have these tours coming up already that are in the app. Some of them are available now that we just pushed up earlier today. And we can include that in the communities and the partners that we do and the cities that we're out there, such as Fort Macleod. We did it while we were out there taking their then and now photographs for the app, which was launched in our app, I think, just last week for the soft launch for Fort Macleod, right, Andrew?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've launched 150 photos in Fort Macleod. It's a very exciting project, and we'll be doing a number of walking tours there, including the 360 virtual tour that we're particularly excited about. But yeah, we've launched. So more or less, what you can do is either build your own tour. You can host it. Use those softwares that we listed there. Will allow you to host them on your own. But we found that there is quite a bit to it, and it is it's not super simple to learn the software. So what you can also do is contract us. We'll come out, do the virtual tour there, or you can take the photographs with your phone and then submit them to us, and we can do it. Work with you to get that up and running as well. But yeah, it's super cheap, and we're gonna keep it cheap for a little while. We're still figuring out full kind of workflow here and stuff. But we have 7 museums coming up. They'll be launching the next couple of days. But Vulcan and Princeton are already up in the app, and you can take a look at them. Princeton's one that was developed. They already had developed, but if you already have one that's developed, we can incorporate that into our platform as well and promote it. So this is something I think that's pretty much covers it, eh?
Yeah, I got a question from Peter here that's interesting. Is it possible to create virtual rooms and place objects in it if the space doesn't allow for the physical museum space? The easiest answer to that question is, yeah, that's the basis of video games, where you can kind of have like that character walking around with the bottomless backpack, a bag of holding, if you will, or you can kind of do that because we're not limited by physical space in here. The physical space limitations don't apply, so we can probably do whatever it is that you're thinking of. So that's a good question.
Yeah, so I think if I understand that correctly, that sounds like augmented reality, right? Where you do this is one of the projects that we'll be working on, hopefully next year. But but it'll be developing an augmented reality tour that shows like 3D digital. We'll be hiring like a digital artist, and they can overlay kind of art on top of that is placed in physical space on top of what we're looking at. This one would be a cannery, or sorry, a sawmill, where that's gone, but we would go take the 360 photos at that spot and then overlay the sawmill as it was on that exact spot with designs. And so that's something that we can do for sure. And it's we've been looking into it quite a bit. Yeah. So we hope you all join us for the next one. If you're in a rush, or if you want to get started right away, we're ready to work with you and help you get your virtual tours up and running. So don't hesitate to. Ross will be following up with with all of you, I believe.
Yeah, we'll be following up with people and getting the information, including the recording. And I'm going to kind of put together maybe a summary of this to send out as well, if we can, and with some of the links, because there was some requests for some of the links that we had in there, like the 360 video. So that's cool. We'll be sending those out and reaching out to people by email or my phone sometime before the next webinar, and we'll be sending out the links to the registration page for it, which will pop once we exit this. It'll exit them on to the registration page for the next webinar.
Yeah, well, I hope that was interesting and educational, and gets you excited and inspired to get developing your own virtual tours.